Welcome and Out of Order, everyone. My name is Ben Mayer.
My name is Anthony Buono.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk about a new Reuters report that says Vladimir Putin of Russia, wants a ceasefire on the current lines of the Ukraine war.
Of course he does.
Yeah, so this is interesting to me just because of really the role it plays in the information battle, the propaganda space, you could say. If Putin really wants a ceasefire, right, you would think that's something that at least the West would want to push for. Ostensibly, we would want a way to stop the war, and you would think that maybe Ukraine would, but of course, Ukraine isn't okay with giving away the about 18% of territory that Russia now occupies in its country.
Yeah, why would they? I mean, they're a sovereign state. There's no reason for a sovereign state to roll over after they just get invaded.
Exactly.
Right? That creates a terrible international precedent, right?
Yes, and that's a huge part of what I would want to get into here, right? Because what are Ukraine's response? What is the U.S.'s response? Ukraine says it's a phony offer. It's meant to shift the blame for the war's continuation onto Ukraine, right? A U.S. State Department representative said that any initiative for peace must respect Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. Mm-hmm. And these responses shouldn't be a surprise. They shouldn't really be a disappointment to anyone that's hoping for the war to end. The reason that Putin leaked that he wanted a ceasefire on the current lines is because he knew that this would be the response, and he knew that he could shift the blame onto the West and onto Ukraine for the war continuing.
And this goes into what he's saying at home to his people of Russia. He's saying that that Russia is in an all-out war with NATO, right? He's saying that to all of his people, right? Yeah. And they're getting inundated with this rhetoric that's going to drive them crazy and drive them into this nationalist fervor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's I don't know. I guess that's part of his calculation, but also this call for a ceasefire from Putin comes off the back of his failed offensive into Kharkiv, right?
Yes.
He led an offensive into Kharkiv. For a couple days, he was losing about 1,000 to 1,500 men per day at some points.
Yeah.
Some days it reached to 1,800 by some reports. Okay, Ukrainians will say they killed 3,000 a day, but that's stupid. And it failed. They're not going to be able to take Kharkiv. And Putin then came out a week ago and he's like, no, I actually had no intention of ever taking Kharkiv. That was never my intention. Shut up, dude. We could see what you're doing.
It's so obvious.
You don't send dudes into the meat grinder like that just for the fun of it. You were going there to try to get a win, okay? And you lost. And now Ukraine has the weaponry coming in from the United States. And now that the weapons from the U.S. are in Russia, and Macron in France has just okayed the Ukrainians using French weapons to attack Russian installations inside of Russia.
Yeah.
Ukraine's got no reason to go for a ceasefire, dude. They're going to want their land back, as they should.
Yeah, Ukraine wants everything back, and I mean they're going to have to lose a lot more before they are willing to come to the table for a settlement that includes them not keeping all of the land that they own.
I want the war to end when the Ukrainian people want the war to end. Okay, that's what I want. Until the Ukrainian people say I'm done fighting, let them fight, and we'll give them the guns to do so. We can't allow international sovereignty and the borders and the whole system collapse under the weight of some megalomaniac.
Totally. I mean, because again, you're right with the precedent. If the precedent for a Ukrainian invasion is that Russia gets some of Ukrainian territory, what's the precedent for Taiwan? Yeah. What's the precedent for any other kind of more regional hegemon to try to take over other territories?
What's the precedent for Serbia? What's the precedent for Iran, right?
Yeah.
All these other little nations that are kind of forced to operate either in the gray zone in the case of Iran or Serbia in the case of not wanting to piss anybody off. Well, what's going to happen when these nations now feel like they have the okay to take little chunks here and there, and it's not a big deal. No one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that much pressure on me. It'll be fine. No, you have to be kicked out of the international order, and you got to get your butt kicked.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's easy to see a world that just returns to constant war.
Right.
We've had an era of unprecedented peace, and we are able to maintain some level of that even after Russia's invasion of Ukraine because of how hard our response has been to them, because of how blatant our isolation has been of Russia on the world stage. If we give in and we acknowledge that war is just another negotiating tactic, then all hell can break loose.
And if you like, I do want there to be some perspective here. People think like, oh, we live such in crazy times and the world is so unstable. Not really. Like, if we look at a graph of the number of people who die in war, okay, it's like, it's near record world lows.
Yes.
We're doing a very good job of keeping humanity from killing each other.
Yeah.
The best we've ever done. This is the best we've ever done at making peace.
Yeah.
So to say, oh, no, the world is going to hell, everything's burning, the world's collapsing, everyone's at war, this isn't true. We don't have to take that as some type of constant.
It's only true with the context of the past 80 years,
right,
post World War II.
Exactly.
Right? It's only true after World War II. But if any time before 1945 and up to that point, it was so much worse.
So, dude, it's not even comparable.
No.
It's not even comparable.
No,
and
ridiculous.
You have to, I feel like it's lost. So much of our generation is like doomer about so many things.
Yeah.
About climate change is a fair one. Not being able to own a home, pay isn't where they want it to be. They feel like they can't get the job they want. I totally hear that and I totally get it. But when we zoom out, child poverty is at record lows. Global poverty is at record lows.
Yeah, like
death by war is at record lows.
child mortality rate, life expectancies, right?
Women's
like,
rights.
Yes, so we have made a ton of progress generally.
Yes.
But I think it's easier now because of the fragmented media environment. For it's better for more people to push a negative view of the world.
Yeah.
Because then they can say, I have the solution.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think people are just getting inundated with that.
And that's what these megalomaniacs like Putin do.
Yeah.
And how it drives people to want to go to war in Ukraine. I don't know how many people in Russia want the war in Ukraine to continue. The things that I hear is like, actually, they're pretty for it.
No, they are pretty for it.
Yeah.
No, because Putin and most Russians do kind of follow this viewpoint that they are in an existential long-term conflict
Yes.
with NATO and the West.
Right.
And they see Ukraine as their battlefield for that. So
yeah, it's like it's Putin's underlying ideology, or at least it's not. Maybe it's not the one that he personally believes, but it's the one he projects.
yeah.
I don't know what's going on in the dude's head, but that's not really the point. All that really matters is the ideology that he's projecting onto the people of Russia that are accepting it and buying into it.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And then again, as we talked about on the previous episode with China, it's a feedback loop. The second the orders and the ideology comes from the top and comes down, the people at the bottom, they drink the Kool-Aid. And eventually, the people drink the Kool-Aid, make it back up the system, and then it's a feedback loop.
Yeah, well, you drink the Kool-Aid when there aren't dissenting voices
Right.
allowed within the country.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas here, like, it's kind of the opposite here.
Mm-hmm.
People are desperate not to be drinking the Kool-Aid so much that they believe stupid, completely baseless
That's
things.
actually very accurate.
Yeah.
It's one of the funny reasons that, like, you look at Americans' approval rating of Congress and it's like 10%. It's actually a beautiful thing about America is that we could hate our government so much.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
and not have anyone come knocking on our door.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.